For more on the massacre, I spoke to Daniel Markey. He's a senior fellow for India, Pakistan, and South Asia at the Council on Foreign Relations. He also authored the book No Exit from Pakistan, America's Tortured Relationship with Islamabad. Back in 2011, former U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton warned Pakistan that you can't have snakes in your backyard and only expect them to bite your neighbor. Pakistan has been blamed for turning a blind eye to the Taliban. I asked him if today's attack is a case of the snake biting back.
This line about a snake in the backyard is exactly what Secretary Hillary Clinton said to the Pakistanis. And it's a line that the United States has been using for years to try to convince the Pakistani state to finally turn against groups like the Haqqani Network or Lashkar-e-Taiba, the organization responsible for those horrible attacks in Mumbai several years ago, that convinced the Pakistanis that they have to go after these groups as well as the groups like the Pakistani Taliban, who pulled off this latest attack in Peshawar and who are very clearly enemies of the Pakistani state. And so far it hasn't worked. And I think the reasoning behind this is that, first of all, the Pakistani state has different priorities than, say, we in the United States might. And secondly, they have concerns about their ability to go after all of these groups simultaneously. And third, they're not entirely convinced that groups like Lashkar-e-Taiba mean to do them harm. They still perceive that such groups aim to direct their violence outside of Pakistan, in which case they don't want to pick fights with groups that could hurt them too. So all of these things continue. This latest attack doesn't necessarily change the Pakistani logic. The group that pulled it off is an enemy, has been attacked by the Pakistani military, and isn't, in their mind, necessarily as closely linked to these other groups as Americans would perceive it to be.
Does the attack change things in terms of public perception? I mean, I've been watching the coverage coming from Pakistan. People just seem outraged at what they're seeing. One person indicating, breaking down in tears, talking about seeing a 2-year-old shot to death. Does it change it in that respect?
This is a devastating attack. I don't think that any Pakistanis, or really anybody, could not help but feel how horrible it is. But the Pakistani people, the people who you're seeing on television, are not the ones who are necessarily supporting the militants who are based inside of Pakistan. That's been a considered decision by the Pakistani military, its intelligence service, the ISI. And so the question there is whether there's a strategic shift, whether they actually see the situation differently. And, you know, public sentiment can help in that, but it doesn't necessarily determine it.
You've been on the border. I've heard you talk about this. You've talked to soldiers who do take this fight seriously. You talked about ISI. I mean, what is it that's needed in terms of buy-in? Where's the disconnect?
Well, first of all, there has been a matter of the capacity of the Pakistani state and its military to successfully go after these organizations. They have been afraid, and as we see today, with good reason, that the backlash to their military operations against the Pakistani Taliban would be horrific. And they're now proven correct in that. So they know that nothing is cost-free. And so they have been attempting to try to find other means to go about this business of dealing with the threat posed by the Pakistani Taliban, including extended negotiations of one kind or another that never actually produced anything of value. So they've been hunting around for different ways to approach this problem. They haven't found a good one. Even the military is not a cost-free one. And as they consider other organizations like the Afghan Taliban or Lashkar-e-Taiba, they also don't see any good options. So they're stuck between a rock and a hard place, much of which is of their own creation, because they are responsible for building up and training and funding a variety of militant groups over decades. But that doesn't make the situation any easier for them now.